Chapter 1439. Yi Qianqian was speaking from the bottom of her heart. Regardless of whether it was in terms of looks, background, or ability, Li Jinnan was better than Shen Luopen. If she could be with Li Jinnan, all the suffering Yi Yuyu had endured wouldn't have been in vain. Yi Yuyu was pushed into the room. She rubbed her hair with exasperation and said, "I'm going to blow dry my hair." Yi Qianqian almost cried out when she heard that. Is this silly sister of mine finally getting the hang of it? She was so happy that her face bloomed. Yi Qianqian quickly replied, "Yes, yes, yes. Don't be too hasty." Not long after Yi Yuyu entered the room, the doorbell rang. Yi Qianqian opened the window. When she saw Li Jinnan's handsome face, she was overjoyed. After she opened the door, she immediately welcomed him in and said, "GM Li, what a rare visitor. Yuyu is still inside. Please come in and take a seat." The moment Li Jinnan walked in, Yi Qianqian could smell the scent of cigarettes on him. Yi Qianqian took a whiff and casually asked, "GM Li, do you smoke?" Li Jinnan turned his head and glanced at her. He nodded his head and replied, "I just smoked one." "Is the smell strong? Why don't I stand at the door for a while?" Yi Qianqian quickly waved her hands. No. It's fine. I don't mind. Come on in." Li Jinnan found Yi Qianqian interesting. He pursed his lips and looked down at the slippers on her feet. "Do you need to change your shoes?" he asked. No. Yi Qianqian walked in. "Just treat this like your own home." She raised her voice and called out, "Yuyu, GM Li is here. Are you ready?" Yi Yuyu didn't reply. Li Jinnan walked in and sat down on the sofa naturally. He replied, "It's fine. I'll wait a while. It's nothing urgent." Yi Qianqian felt that this man was full of gentlemanliness. She poured a glass of fruit juice for Li Jinnan and handed it to him with both hands. She then sat down in front of him and whispered, "GM Li, you seem to like our Yuyu a lot." Li Jinnan nodded his head. His expression was natural as he replied, "I do." Yi Qianqian was pleasantly surprised. "Is it the kind of liking that I understand?" "It should be." Yi Qianqian clapped her hands and said, "That makes things easier. Actually, GM Li, I won't hide it from you. Yuyu must have told you that she's actually married. She was married to Shen Luopen before. Do you know Shen Luopen? He's one of the imperial capital's 3 young masters, who's known as the Ghost Doctor." Li Jinnan's expression was natural. He nodded his head and replied, "I've heard a little about it. I'm aware of the incident as well. But, I heard that his private life isn't very discreet. With his sister, Tisk." Yi Qianqian looked as if she had found a confidant. She was a little excited as she said, Yeah. Isn't that right? That kind of thing is not worthy of our Yuyu at all, but he refuses to get a divorce. God knows how much my heart aches for our Yuyu. When she was injured and hospitalized, he only came once. After paying the medical fees, he never came again. What can I do? I am also very desperate." Behind such a long line of foreshadowing, there must be a big plan. Li Jinnan nodded and followed her words. He asked, "It's quite miserable. So, what do you think I should do to make it more appropriate?" Chapter 1440. When Yi Qianqian said that, she deliberately observed Li Jinnan's reaction. His expression remained impassive. She couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. Yi Qianqian cursed in her heart. Yet another person who can't see his true colors. However, Yi Qianqian hardened her heart and continued egging him on. You have to know that when a girl is vulnerable, it's easiest for her to fall in love with another person. Now that our Yuyu has suffered a setback in her relationship, she's extremely disappointed in Shen Luopen. If that were to be written into a novel, it would be a tragic story. At this time, you want me to take advantage of the situation? Li Jinnan interrupted her. His words hit the nail on the head. Yi Qianqian's words were stuck in her throat. She was a little embarrassed. She instinctively said, "That's not what I meant, can I smoke?" Li Jinnan was in a strange mood. He looked at Yi Qianqian with his almond-shaped eyes and interrupted her. Perhaps because the topic was a little off-topic, Yi Qianqian was stunned for a moment before she nodded her head. Sure. Li Jinnan took out his pack of cigarettes and took one out. He didn't light it. He played with it in his hand and slowly said, "I'm working on it, but I think I'll need your cooperation." Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up. She clicked her tongue and said excitedly, "I can tell that you're a passionate person." "What are you talking about?" Yi Yuyu's voice came from inside. The two of them turned their heads at almost the same time. They immediately saw Yi Yuyu in her light blue pajamas. Yi Yuyu's hair had just been blow-dried. It was draped over her shoulders. She didn't have any makeup on. Her face was a little pale, and she looked a little thin. Li Jinnan looked at her and frowned. He asked, "Have you finished eating?" Yi Yuyu hadn't expected that to be the first thing he would say when she arrived. She immediately replied, "Yes." "Okay." Li Jinnan took out a match and lit his cigarette. "Let's go." "Huh?" Yi Yuyu was a little confused. "Where are we going?" "To eat supper." Li Jinnan stood up and took a drag of his cigarette. She exhaled a puff of white smoke that brushed past her almond-shaped eyes. Li Jinnan's eyes narrowed slightly, and he said in a firm tone, "You're too skinny. You need to put on some weight." Yi Qianqian quickly nodded in agreement and said, "Yeah, I think so too." "Let's go. We had dinner in the afternoon, and it's been 3 or 4 hours. It's time for supper. Yuyu, go and get changed." Yi Yuyu replied, "I'm not hungry. I have something to tell you." Li Jinnan looked at her and said, "Leave us." Yi Qianqian felt as if her maiden heart was about to explode. The way he spoke and the way he smoked. Wasn't that exactly how she imagined her dream man to be? Ao. Unfortunately, the grass was already taken, and it was his own sister. However, at least it wasn't eaten by other people's cows, so it wasn't a loss. Yi Yuyu didn't feel like going out and said, "If you have anything to say, say it here. My sister isn't an outsider." "Yeah, let's go together." Li Jinnan gently flicked the ash into the trash can and said, "Let's get together." Yi Qianqian gave Li Jinnan a thumbs up in her heart and nodded her head. "Okay. Let's go together." In order to make it easier for Li Jinnan to take advantage of the situation, as his future sister-in-law, she had to be cooperative. Chapter 1441. Yi Yuyu's words were stuck in her throat. She was speechless. Looking at Yi Qianqian, she couldn't resist her moral blackmail. After changing her clothes, the living room was filled with the faint smell of tobacco when she walked out. Li Jinnan was tall and dressed simply, but his aura couldn't be concealed. They went down the stairs and found a restaurant. Yi Qianqian ordered a few things and left the decision to Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan had just finished dinner, so he wasn't hungry. He followed his memory and ordered a few dishes that Yi Yuyu might like before throwing the menu back. Yi Yuyu sat to the side and appeared very obedient. She asked, "GM Li, why are you looking for me so late at night?" "Yeah. My friend is getting married the day after tomorrow. Why don't you come along?" Li Jinnan tapped his fingers on the table. "Be my female companion." "Hey, the friend you're talking about isn't O Ming, is it?" Yi Qianqian asked. "I'm going too, but Lily seems to have invited Shen Luo An's sister. Her name is Manting or something. Isn't it a little inappropriate for Yi Yuyu to be the female companion?" Li Jinnan raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is that so?" "Yeah. It's fine. It's fine as long as I'm coming. Anyway, I'm just here to be a part of O Ming's wedding." Li Jinnan took a sip of tea and said slowly, "After you get divorced, we can go back to being the main characters." Yi Yuyu was caught off guard by his unexpected words. She coughed lightly and looked at Yi Qianqian guiltily. She immediately noticed Yi Qianqian's gossipy eyes. She picked up a teacup and took a sip. "Oh, I'll be there when you get married." Yi Yuyu's meaning couldn't be clearer. She was trying to distance herself from Li Jinnan in front of Yi Qianqian. Li Jinnan acted as if he didn't understand. He nodded his head and said, "Yeah. I heard that Ming prepared 3 wedding dresses for his wife. I'll prepare 4 for you. You can't lose out to him." Yi Yuyu almost choked on her tea. The tea got stuck in her throat, and she started coughing violently. She didn't know if it was because she was choking, but her face turned red. Li Jinnan frowned slightly. He reached out and patted Yi Yuyu's back lightly. "Why are you so careless? Don't you know how to drink water?" Yi Yuyu coughed even more violently. She reached out to push his hand away and shook her head. She pretended that she couldn't see or hear anything. She took a sip of tea and savored it carefully. With a heartfelt sigh, she said, "This tea is pretty good." Li Jinnan was in a good mood. He casually replied, "It's all right." At this moment, the waiter served the crispy fried pork tenderloin and placed it on the plate. Yi Yuyu felt as if she had been granted amnesty. She immediately picked up her chopsticks, picked up a piece, and stuffed it into her mouth. As she chewed on the meat, she stopped talking. Li Jinnan seemed to have thought of something and asked, "What do you think?" Yi Yuyu pretended not to hear him as she ate. She buried her head in her bowl. When Li Jinnan saw her behavior, the corners of his mouth lifted up imperceptibly. He pretended not to notice and said in a serious tone, "If it's not enough, we can add more." GM Li, Yi Yuyu couldn't take it anymore. She interrupted Li Jinnan. Her tone sounded forced and stiff as she said, "I'm hungry." Chapter 1442. Yi Yuyu suddenly felt like she couldn't eat anymore. It was unbearable. Yi Qianqian looked at the sky. She couldn't see. In that instant, Yi Qianqian felt that it had been a mistake to follow them. However, based on their reactions, their relationship didn't seem to be as simple as it seemed. After the meal, Yi Yuyu's stomach was so full that she didn't feel like getting up. It's not good for your stomach to eat so much in the middle of the night. Li Jinnan poured her a cup of tea and said lightly. She glared at him and said, "If you weren't here, I wouldn't have been able to eat so much." Li Jinnan looked a little surprised and nodded his head. With a look of satisfaction on his face, he said, "I never expected that I'd be a feast for the eyes." Yi Yuyu was speechless. She picked up her teacup and took a sip. For a moment, she was speechless. "However, no matter how charming I am, you shouldn't eat so much," Li Jinnan said sarcastically as he lit up a cigarette. "What can I do? I've already eaten it." Yi Yuyu was a little annoyed. Why was this man so shameless? If you gave him a pole, he could fly straight into the sky? Li Jinnan slowly puffed out a ring of smoke and calmly replied, "In that case, I can only do some aerobic exercise to aid digestion." She coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of water. Almost at the same time, Li Jinnan and Yi Yuyu looked over. Yi Qianqian blushed. She quickly wiped her face with a tissue and coughed lightly. Was she thinking wrongly? Doing aerobic exercise in the middle of the night, this? Yi Yuyu blushed when she saw Yi Qianqian's reaction. She stood up and said to Li Jinnan bluntly, "You pay the bill. I'm going for a walk in the park." Li Jinnan had no objections. He nodded slightly, stood up, and walked out. After paying the bill, Li Jinnan followed them as they strolled leisurely. He looked around and commented, "The environment isn't too bad, but the security needs to be strengthened. This place doesn't seem too safe. Why are there so many bad people?" "Enough is enough," Yi Yuyu said in exasperation as she quickened her pace. Yi Qianqian was surprised to hear Yi Yuyu's tone. From the very beginning, Yi Yuyu had been teasing him. If this had been in the past, Yi Yuyu would have held it in and not said a word. She would have told her in secret when she got home. This was a habit she had developed after being by Shenluo and Side for several years. That night, Yi Yu had completely lost the shadow of the yes man. It was as if she had returned to the time before Guan Kui had gotten into trouble. Yi Yu was a little stubborn and a little hot-tempered. Very real, very cute. When Yi Qianqian saw that, she gave Li Jinnan a sidelong glance. Yi Qianqian stood behind them and said, Yu, I just remembered that I still have a draft to review. I'll head back first. I have to work overtime. Why don't you take a walk with GM Li and digest your food? As she spoke, she didn't wait for Yi Yu's reply. She turned around and waved her hand widely. Yi Yu was dumbfounded. Did Yi Qianqian just sell me off? Sister. Yi Qianqian turned around with a smile and said, it doesn't matter if you come back later. Let's have a good chat. It didn't matter if he didn't come back. Anyway, she would definitely lock the door tonight. GM Li, whether you succeed or not depends on yourself. Li Jinnan looked at her with his dark eyes. His eyes were as dark as the night, as if he wanted to suck her in. Yi Yu was stunned for a moment before replying, it's because they're addicted. Li Jinnan's eyes curved slightly, and he nodded slightly. His gaze returned to the surface of the river as he continued, yeah. Because I'm addicted, I don't want to restrain myself. So, I indulged myself. In an instant, Yi Yu understood what he meant. Because he was addicted, he didn't want to restrain himself, so he indulged. What a perfect sentence. It was indeed something that someone like him would say. Yi Yu pursed her lips slightly. For some reason, her heart was moved. Chapter 1444. The breeze from the river was cool. The reflection of the street was bright and sparkling on the surface of the river. Yi Yu looked at the side profile of the man beside her. His face was tense and determined. Something was changing in the depths of her heart. As if sensing Yi Yu's gaze, Li Jinnan turned to look at her. His deep, dark eyes could clearly see the expression on Yi Yu's face. Her emotions began to change. His lips turned up. He tilted his head slightly and said, let's go. Huh? Yi Yu asked. You don't want to go home? Li Jinnan put out his cigarette and asked with a half smile, or do you want to get a room with me? No. Yi Yu objected immediately. The smile in Li Jinnan's eyes deepened as he said, then let's get a room. I said I don't want to get a room. Yi Yu gritted her teeth. Li Jinnan didn't care. He put his hands in his pockets and turned to leave. Yi Yu followed behind and shouted, I'm going home. Yeah. You don't have to send me home. You should go back. It's getting late. My car is downstairs. The wedding date was on schedule. The house that Wen Fenglin had bought wasn't big. The group of friends and relatives had already filled up the house. Yu Lily was wearing her wedding gown. She was excited and nervous at the thought of seeing the man that she had been thinking about day and night. It was a kind of unknown future and a longing for the arrival of happiness. The groom is here. The groom is here. A childish voice called out. Everyone in the house couldn't help but love him. Li Jianyu was wearing a cute white dress and black leather shoes. She ran inside and said, Uncle O Ming is here. Brother Mosen, hold the door and don't let Uncle O Ming in. The little girl's sweet voice made everyone around laugh. Someone couldn't help but tease, how can we not let your Uncle O Ming in? Your Uncle O Ming still has to marry his wife. Exactly. Do you want your Uncle O Ming to not marry your Auntie Lily? Li Jianyu heard that and stood firm. She put her hands on her hips and said, Auntie Qianqian said that if Uncle O Ming isn't sincere, he can't marry his wife. Brother Mosen, am I right? The little boy, Li Mosen, who had been called out, nodded his head when he heard Li Jianyu's words. With a serious expression, he said, yes, not only do you have to marry a wife, but you also have to be sincere in wooing a wife. Io, this little fellow has awareness. Little comrade, you have a bright future. Whose child is this? He must be from Su Qianxi's family. So cute. This is a mixed race, a Prince Charming. The compliments around him made Li Mosen a little embarrassed. He blushed, but he did not retreat. He stood with Li Jianhua. This little flower boy looks so good standing there. Both boys and girls are cute. This girl looks so much like Su Qianxi and Li Xicheng. You can tell it's their child at a glance. As one of the bridesmaids, Yi Qianqian came forward to protect the two little flower girls and said, "Don't scare our little angels. Hurry up and prepare your red packets. Oh Ming is here. We can't let him marry our little princess so easily." Yu Lily, who was surrounded, suddenly felt a burst of happiness in her heart. Chapter 1445. She just said that she went out to buy something. I think she'll be back soon. Give her a call, someone said. Hearing that, Yu Lily subconsciously thought of the conversation she had with Enchanting a few days ago. For some reason, she felt a little strange. When she heard what her friend said, she picked up her phone and dialed Enchanting's number. However, Enchanting's phone rang behind her. Yi Qianqian followed the ringtone and quickly took out a white phone. She waved the phone and said, "The phone is here, but she's not." Maybe she went out to relax, Yu Lily murmured as if to comfort herself. After a while, she heard the doorbell ring. Oh, the groom and the groomsmen are here. Everyone, get ready. Yi Qianqian put the matter at the back of her mind and quickly waved her hand. She led a group of colleagues and friends toward the door to hide. Yi Qianqian pushed Li Jianhua to the door, and the little girl immediately called out, "Who is it?" It was a young girl's voice, familiar and sweet. Oh Ming couldn't help but laugh and said, "It's me." "Who are you?" "I'm Uncle Oh Ming." "Who are you today?" Li Jianhua shouted according to the lines that Yi Qianqian had arranged for her. "I'm the groom. I heard that the groom has to give a red packet." "Where's Uncle Oh Ming's red packet?" "Open the door. Uncle will give you a red packet." "All right," Li Jianhua shouted. "Open the door." Yi Qianqian rubbed Li Jianhua's fluffy little head and praised, "Great." Soon, the door was opened, and the group of bridesmaids inside all shouted, "Who is it?" The groomsmen behind him were all Oh Ming's friends. When they heard that, they all laughed and said, "The groom is here to pick up the bride." Sincerity. The group of bridesmaids shouted. Then, Oh Ming quickly took out a stack of red packets and said, "Sincerity?" The group of bridesmaids shouted happily. Li Jianhua's small body also shouted and jumped up. Everyone was paying attention to the little cutie. Oh Ming stuffed all the red packets into the little girl's hands and said, "Help Uncle give out red packets." Okay. Li Jianhua held a pile of red envelopes and shouted excitedly, "Brother Mosen, red envelopes." The adults all laughed, but Yi Qianqian wasn't about to let Oh Ming in. She said, "Where's your sincerity? Declare your love. Shout it out." The groomsmen sighed and said, "Why didn't you follow the rules? You should have opened the door after taking the red packet. Our young Master O doesn't know how to speak, but he still wants to declare his love." Ha 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 ha. Master O, a declaration of love. He touched his nose and said, "A declaration of love. Let me think about it." The scene was filled with cheers and hoots. One of Yi Qianqian's friends walked out with a microphone that had been prepared beforehand and said, "Come, come, come. This is a declaration of love. Where's the applause?" Cheers and whistles instantly rang out. They were all a group of young people, and they were all very open. When they saw such a scene, they all became excited. A microphone was stuffed into Oh Ming's hand. There was a smile on his handsome face and a pair of beautiful peach blossom eyes. However, he couldn't see the figure that he hadn't seen for decades. Yu Lily. His deep and magnetic voice had a touch of evil that was exclusive to Oh Ming. Chapter 1446. Especially when she heard that the cheers outside had quieted down, this feeling was even stronger. He stood up, opened the door a crack, and peeked out. You Lily, Oh Ming's voice came again, and he called her name again. I'm here. A few simple words fell into Yu Lily's heart. Sweet happiness began to quickly ferment. Outside, there was a commotion, and the bridesmaids immediately began to dislike him. Isn't this a declaration of love? Why is it so simple? No, do it again. Oh Ming really didn't know how to say those sweet words. Hearing the dislike around him, he helplessly scratched his ears and cheeks, thought for a moment, and said, You Lily, I did a lot of things wrong in the past, and I even hurt you again and again. Many times, we broke up and got back together. Every time, although I didn't say it, I know you must be very sad. As Oh Ming spoke, his face turned red, especially after seeing the eyes around him. He coughed a little unnaturally and said, But it doesn't matter. The sadness I caused you in the past, let me compensate you bit by bit in the future. We have a lifetime, and in the future, we will have children. I will continue my feelings for you to our next generation, and our future, forever. Well said. The best men immediately clapped their hands and started to applaud. In the room, Yu Lily burst into laughter, but her eyes were inexplicably hot. There was a commotion outside, and Yu Lily immediately returned to the bed and sat down. Soon, the room door was opened. The group of bridesmaids rushed in and surrounded Yu Lily in an instant. Yu Lily was wearing a wedding dress that Oh Ming had carefully designed, exquisite and gorgeous. Oh Ming looked at Yu Lily. The long separation had made the eyes of his beloved woman in front of him even more beautiful, and it made his heart beat even more. Yu Lily stood up, surrounded by people. Looking at the man in front of her, she had not seen for a long time, chuckled, and said, The words you just said are really not suitable for you. Oh Ming walked forward, stared at her, and slowly said, I will do it. Yu Lily's lips curved, and her laughter was light. Like a bird, she flew forward and landed firmly in his arms. Yi Qianqian was secretly envious. Suddenly, the cell phone in her handbag rang again. It was Enchanting's cell phone. Yi Qianqian walked to a corner and picked up her cell phone. She immediately saw the caller. Shen Luo. The relationship between Enchanting and Shen Luo had long been an open secret. Yi Qianqian's messages were never restricted. When she saw the number, she ignored it and put it back. Yi Qianqian searched the entire area, but she couldn't find any trace of Enchanting. However, Shen Luo made no less than 5 calls in a row. Ding dong, she received a text message from Shen Luo. Where are you? If you don't tell me, I'll go to Oh Ming's wedding to find you. Yi Qianqian sneered when she read the news. This fellow, it seemed like he was born to be a rotten person. Not only did he treat Yi Yuyu this way, but he also treated Enchanting this way. Rotten. Rotten to the core. Following that, Shen Luo called her again. Yi Qianqian quickly answered the call and angrily said, Enchanting has gone out. I didn't bring my phone. When he heard Yi Qianqian's voice, he seemed to be a little angry. Where did she go? Dash. Chapter 1447. When Yi Qianqian heard Shen Luo's words, she became even angrier. She opened her mouth and scolded, Are you crazy? She is your sister and your lover. Everyone knows the relationship between you and Yi Yuyu. She is your wife, but you are taking care of a childhood friend who has nothing to do with you. How can you ask where Enchanting is now? You ask me, how do I know? When I found this phone, she had already disappeared. Shouldn't you ask yourself this question? Yi Qianqian's voice was not low, and she spoke quickly like a machine gun. Shen Luo became even more angry and said in a deep voice, Don't play tricks on me. Ask Enchanting to answer the phone. Ha! Yi Qianqian sneered. You still want to play tricks? Do you think you are a wreath? I am not your dog. Goodbye. After that, he hung up the phone. Yi Qianqian hung up the phone and felt happy. She turned on Enchanting's phone and blocked Shen Luo's phone number. Enchanting deliberately came to Kingstown to be Yu Lily's bridesmaid. She probably wanted to get rid of Shen Luo's shackles. In this case, she had done a good deed. Humph. Yi Qianqian closed the page. However, at a glance, she saw a few big words written on the screen of Shen Manting's phone. If you see my phone, please help me open the notebook. It was a white page with black words. The words were large and clear at a glance. Yi Qianqian was stunned. Looking at the phone, she suddenly felt at a loss. Is this just a desktop or some kind of message? How did she know that someone would touch her phone? Yi Qianqian was curious, but she quickly realized that Shen Manting's phone did not have a password set. Nowadays, every normal person's phone must have a password set or a wrinkle to unlock it, but Shen Manting's phone could be unlocked with a light swipe, and there was very little software. Yi Qianqian opened the notebook suspiciously. When she clicked on it, she saw a text file that was filled with densely packed words. It read, I am Shen Manting. Although I don't know who you are, if you see this notebook, thank you for paying attention to me. Please pass my cell phone to Shen Luo and let him open my favorite box. Thank you. On the right-hand side of my bed, there is a crystal bottle. Inside the bottle is my gift of thanks to you. Thank you for helping me pass the message. Thank you for paying attention to me. There weren't many words, but every single one of them was filled with a sense of farewell. Yi Qianqian was shocked. She opened the other apps on her phone and found that all her social media accounts and contact data had been cleared. All that was left was Shen Luo. In other words, Shen Manting had long been prepared for this decision. Yi Qianqian flipped through it and found an encrypted document in one of the programs. There was an encrypted file in the document. Yi Qianqian tried to open it, but she needed to enter the password. Come to think of it, this must be her willingness to hand over the phone to Shen Luo, right? Yi Qianqian felt a little regretful. She quickly closed the web page and removed Shen Luo's number from the blacklist. She dialed his number. Chapter 1448. When Yi Qianqian heard his words, she knew that he must have found out about Shen Manting's departure. After a moment of silence, Yi Qianqian actually felt a little sad. He asked again, did she say anything to you before she left? Yi Qianqian thought about it and sighed. She said, I don't know. I'm not close to Shen Manting, but I'm sure she's no longer in Kingstown. If you look for her, you might be able to find her. Shen Luo suddenly felt a little flustered when he heard this. This was a feeling he had never felt before. It was just like the physiological reaction he had when he approached Shen Manting. It was as if he had encountered a magnet. This feeling was sudden and inexplicable. Shen Luo felt an inexplicable sense of irritation. He couldn't help but sneer and say, why should I look for her? Yi Qianqian's sadness suddenly turned into anger. She was so angry that she yelled, go to hell. She hung up the phone and stomped her feet in anger. Scum. Bastard. Disgusting man. Useless man. Transplanting machine man. But after hanging up, she remembered that she was supposed to give the phone to Shen Luo. But she didn't want to give it to him anymore. What a slut. Qianqian, where did you go? Someone shouted from afar. Yi Qianqian immediately replied, coming. Today was the wedding day of O Ming and Yu Lily. They couldn't be too anxious. They had to be happy. Yi Qianqian adjusted her emotions and let out a long sigh before walking out. O Ming had already helped the bride into the wedding car, and the scene was filled with cheers. Yi Qianqian placed her cell phone in her handbag before following him. Shen Manting's sudden departure was hard for him to accept. Sitting on Shen Manting's bed, Shen Luo stared blankly at the door, as if a tall and voluptuous figure was standing there. Shen Manting left? Therefore, going to Kingstown to be Yu Lily's bridesmaid was just an excuse. That woman only wanted to escape from him, that was all. With this realization, Shen Luo suddenly felt a little ridiculous. Escape from him? What right does Shen Manting have to do that? What she had, what she wanted, and what she got were all given by the Shen family. Why should she escape? After enjoying everything he wanted, he just left, right? How could there be such a thing in the world? Shen Luo abruptly stood up from the bed, picked up his phone, and dialed a number. Help me find someone. The person on the other side had never heard Shen Luo speak so angrily and anxiously. He was stunned for a moment and immediately asked, "Who is it?" "My woman, Enchanting." The surrounding scenery flashed past quickly, and the fuselage shook violently because it was moving. When the sound of something slicing through the air rang out, everything in the surroundings seemed to have gradually become distant. Her field of vision was getting higher and higher, and the ground was getting farther and farther away. When she finally saw the layers of white clouds, her heart, which had been tense all this while, suddenly relaxed. However, perhaps it was because she had been in a highly tense state of mind all of a sudden that her heart began to tremble. Inexplicably, her eyes began to sting, and a warm current welled up in her eyes. For a moment, she couldn't hold back her tears. She let out a low whimper, and big drops of tears rolled down her cheeks and fell into the plush toy in her arms. Chapter 1449. In the Holy Church, Jesus was nailed to the center of the cross. The priest stood in the center and announced the wedding of the couple. The atmosphere was getting better and better, and everyone was beaming. But Yi Qianqian had something else hidden in her heart. "Qianqian, what are you thinking about? Lily is going to throw the bouquet." A colleague nudged Yi Qianqian, who was in a daze, and reminded her. Yi Qianqian snapped back to her senses and saw Yu Lily's blissfully slender back. At that moment, Yu Lily's back was facing them. She shouted, "1, 2, 3. Catch it." Just as Yu Lily's voice fell, the girls began to shout and collectively snatch the bouquet. Since they were attending the wedding, they had to participate in the bouquet throwing activities. It was said that the person who got the bouquet would be the next to get married. Regardless of whether the rumor was true or not, everyone was just doing it for fun. But, after all the hustle and bustle, the bouquet ended up in the hands of a person who had been standing at the back the entire time. Everyone looked at the person. Yi Yuyu looked at the bouquet in her hand in a daze. She looked around and seemed a little embarrassed. She said, Ever since Yi Yuyu had arrived, no one had paid much attention to her. Now that she had suddenly become the owner of the bouquet, many people looked over. Many people's eyes lit up when they saw her. They began to whisper, "Who is that? She's so pretty. She looks so much like Yi Qianqian. She must be Yi Qianqian's younger sister. But, she's much prettier than Yi Qianqian. Hey, she looks a little familiar. Is she some celebrity?" Li Jinnan stood in the crowd and immediately noticed the shy Yi Yuyu. The corners of his mouth turned up slightly. He found her adorable. Su Qianxi was leading the two children. When she saw Li Jinnan's subtle but genuine expression, she immediately understood what he meant. She nudged him mischievously and teased, "Have you taken a fancy to her?" Li Jinnan glanced at Su Qianxi. On that familiar face was a smile that he was very familiar with. He didn't nod or shake his head, but the smile on his lips deepened. Su Qianxi understood at a glance and said, "This girl is really good. She's pretty and has a good personality. But I heard that she's married." The married person received the bouquet. Did this mean that they were married again? Su Qianxi had this thought in her mind and was immediately startled. She wouldn't marry her second uncle, would she? How could he do that? His rational mind told him that he shouldn't be superstitious and that he should just play around with things. However, Su Qianxi was reborn. For such things, she would rather believe them than not believe them. The smile on Li Jinnan's face faded a little. Without a word, he walked in the direction of Yi Yuyu. Seeing this, Su Qianxi's heart skipped a beat, and she thought, "It's over. Uncle is really interested in Yi Qianqian's younger sister. What should I do?" Su Qianxi subconsciously looked at Yi Yuyu and accidentally found that Yi Yuyu seemed to be looking at her. For a moment, she was embarrassed. Smiling politely, she quickly turned her head. Yi Yuyu retracted her gaze, feeling a sense of loneliness in her heart. Chapter 1450. That's fine. In any case, I probably won't be with him anymore. The distance between us is too great. Li Jinan walked through the crowd toward Yi Yuyu. By the time he arrived, most of the people had already dispersed. Yi Yuyu and Yi Qianqian were standing together talking. When she saw Li Jinan walk over, Yi Qianqian took a step back and said, "Yuyu, I'm going to use the restroom. Remember to come to the hotel for dinner later." Li Jinan was very pleased with Yi Qianqian's tactfulness and gave her a look of approval. Yi Yuyu held the bouquet in her hands and felt a little uneasy. She lowered her head and was about to walk away when she was blocked. Li Jinan stopped her with one long arm. With his long fingers, he took the bouquet she was holding and said in a low voice, "Congratulations. You're next." Li Jinan smelled of tobacco. It wasn't strong, but it smelled good. When Yi Yuyu heard Li Jinan's obvious words, she felt a little repulsed. He had just been standing and talking with the woman he liked. His gaze was so gentle, and he looked so lovey-dovey. The next moment, he was openly seducing a married woman. Do men like that all like to play with people like that? Yi Yuyu looked up at him and said, "GM Li, you must be joking. You know that I'm already married. Who said you can't get married a second time?" Li Jinan said matter-of-factly. "I'll give you a second time." Yi Yuyu's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and around her. She realized that there were still people looking at her. Her heart was in her throat. This feeling was no different from having an affair. Luckily, Li Jinan's voice was very soft. Otherwise, she would have been even more embarrassed. Yi Yuyu lowered her head and quickly said, "Since you like this bouquet, I'll let you have it. Goodbye." With that, Yi Yuyu immediately turned around and left. Li Jinan held the bouquet of white roses in his hands. His heart was filled with surprise and surprise. It was a very strange feeling. Looking at the flowers, he smiled and muttered to himself, "This is the first time a woman has given me flowers. Why is she so careless?" When he said that, even Li Jinan laughed. He looked in the direction that Yi Yuyu had fled in with a gentle gaze. The direction and goal in his heart became clearer and clearer. If he wanted her, it would be her. Yi Yuyu could clearly feel Li Jinan's threatening gaze behind her. She cautiously walked all the way to the bathroom. When she felt that no one was looking at her, she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. He splashed his face with water, and then he heard voices coming from inside. His voice wasn't loud, so Yi Yuyu couldn't hear him clearly. He could vaguely tell that it was Yi Qianqian's voice. He walked in and knocked on the door. "Sis, are you here?" When Yi Qianqian heard Yi Yuyu's voice, she immediately paused and replied, "It's me." Yi Yuyu walked in. Yi Qianqian was talking on the phone with an unhappy expression on her face. "What's wrong?" Yi Yuyu asked. Yi Qianqian waved her hand and motioned for her to keep quiet. Then, she said in an extremely unfriendly tone, "It's up to you whether you believe me or not. I really don't know. I just picked up her cell phone. Besides, what does Shenmanting's escape have to do with me? F***ck, don't force me to swear. I will send the phone to you. Just give me an address. As for the rest, it's none of my business." These words contained a lot of information. Chapter 1451. Yi Qianqian turned and saw Yi Yuyu's expression. She felt a little awkward and said, "Yuyu, wait a minute." Shen Luo and was silent on the other end. He had always had special feelings for Yi Yuyu. She was his wife and his childhood sweetheart. But, when Yi Yuyu heard Yi Qianqian's confession, she leaned forward curiously. Yi Qianqian hung up the phone. Yi Yuyu didn't hear anything. "What are you talking about? What do you mean by Shenmanting ran away?" Yi Yuyu had a bad feeling in her heart. She looked at Yi Qianqian's guilty eyes and asked in a questioning tone, "How did you know?" As she spoke, her eyes fell on Yi Qianqian's hand. This phone belongs to Enchanting, doesn't it? Yi Qianqian was getting impatient. Can you stop asking? It's not a good thing for you anyway. What do you mean? I'm not sure what happened, but didn't Enchanting say she was going to be Lily's bridesmaid today? Yi Yuyu nodded. Yi Qianqian continued, actually, it was just a ruse. Enchanting left her cell phone here and waited for us to find it. After leaving a message, we don't know where she went. I'm guessing that she's already gone. But Shen Luo is like AF** king psychopath. He keeps calling and pressing for answers. Yi Qianqian clenched her teeth in anger and said, but it's best if Shen Luo finds that woman. Otherwise, he'll definitely pester you in the future. Enchanting also diverted his attention. If Enchanting really runs away from home and doesn't come back, then... Yi Qianqian was terrified. Absolutely not. You must get a divorce. This kind of man is unacceptable. Yi Yuyu was silent when she heard that. Enchanting really left? It wasn't that Yi Yuyu didn't know about the relationship between Shen Luo and her. She just didn't know how they interacted. When she saw this result, she naturally knew it wasn't good. She pursed her lips and said, don't be afraid, older sister. Even if Enchanting is gone, there's still Guan Kui. We've been separated for more than a year since our marriage. In a few more months, we'll be able to file for divorce. When Yi Qianqian heard that, a look of shock and disbelief appeared on her face. She exclaimed, oh my God. You've finally come around. Oh my God. What followed was astonishing excitement. Yi Qianqian suddenly jumped up and laughed out loud. She immediately hugged Yi Yuyu and shouted, that's great. That's great. You must hold on to Li Jinnan. Compared to that perverted scumbag, he is the best of the best. Yi Qianqian's exaggerated expression and tone made Yi Yuyu feel guilty. He immediately pushed her down and covered her mouth. Keep your voice down. What if someone hears you? When Yi Qianqian heard that, she got even more excited. She put her arm around Yi Qianqian's shoulder and asked, how's your relationship with Li Jinnan now? Oh my, why did you come back so early the night before yesterday? You should have stayed a little longer to cultivate your relationship. Don't mess around. Yi Yuyu looked at her reproachfully. Between him and me, I don't think it's possible. Chapter 1452. Yi Qianqian didn't know about Yi Yuyu's concerns. She patted Yi Yuyu's shoulder excitedly and rebuked her. It's not that far away. As long as you get a divorce, everything will go smoothly. GM Li is very interested in you. Yi Yuyu didn't want to continue the conversation. She pushed Yi Yuyu away and said, let's go. There are many people here. It'll be awkward if someone hears us. Yi Qianqian's mood brightened immediately. She nodded her head and led Yi Yuyu out. Many people had already gone to the hotel. After Yi Qianqian and Yi Yuyu walked out, the crowd around them had lessened. Just as they walked out, they saw a black car parked outside. The car was a beautiful mirror, and the reflection of the two of them was reflected in it. In an instant, the car window was lowered, revealing the face of the person inside. Yi Yuyu and Yi Qianqian thought of the same person at the same time, Li Jinnan. But, when the car window was lowered, they saw another face. His face was handsome and resolute. It was very pleasing to the eye. However, when compared to Li Jinnan's, it was a far cry from his looks. Yi Yuyu and Yi Qianqian were a little disappointed. The man said, Miss Yi, third young master asked me to pick you up. That one sentence pulled back all the disappointment in his heart. They naturally knew who third young master was referring to. The two of them quickly got into the car. Yi Qianqian looked a little happy and said, there are too many people here. Third young master is so considerate. Yi Yuyu pursed her lips and didn't say a word. The hotel wasn't far, and there were many guests coming and going. It was very lively. Yu Lily changed her clothes and changed her makeup in the bridal room. She was so tired that she was about to collapse. The dress for the toast was a long red cheongsam. She had to wear a pair of very high heels. Usually, this was no trouble for Yu Lily. But today, it was a little difficult for Yu Lily. When she stepped out of the door in her high heels, she almost fell. The assistant beside her was quick to react and immediately supported her. Yu Lily was still in shock. Before she could breathe a sigh of relief, she heard familiar footsteps. Oh Ming was extraordinarily handsome that day. He was wearing a black silk Chinese tunic suit with dark patterns and a jazz hat on his head. When he walked over, a pair of bright, almond-shaped eyes looked over, and he walked a little faster to take Yu Lily. Feeling the familiar aura, Yu Lily's heart calmed down. You go ahead with your work, Oh Ming said to his assistant. The assistant quickly left. Oh Ming held Yu Lily up and asked with a frown, "What's wrong? Too tired?" Well. Yu Lily stood up straight and looked up at him. Her eyes were sparkling. She smiled sweetly and said, "Come in." With that, she pulled him back into the bride's room. Her footsteps were a little hurried, and she couldn't wait any longer. Oh Ming, who was watching from behind, was shocked. He put his hand behind her. As soon as they entered, Yu Lily closed the door, but before she had time to lock it, she was taken by a strong and powerful hand. Yu Lily was caught off guard and bumped into a strong chest. In a moment, she clearly felt a strong heartbeat in front of her and a burning gaze. Chapter 1453. The assistant stood outside for a few minutes, guessing that something unspeakable was going on inside. She took a look and saw that 5 minutes had passed before she knocked on the door again. But this time, the door opened quickly. The assistant was surprised. So fast? The person who opened the door was Oh Ming. Oh Ming's black Chinese tunic suit was still the same. It was very neat and tidy, without the slightest hint of disarray. It gave off a sense of propriety and respectability. The assistant was even more surprised when she saw it. Could it be that she was wrong? Oh Ming looked at the assistant and said, "Help her touch up her makeup." With that, he walked away. When the assistant walked in, Yu Lily's face was abnormally red. The lipstick on her lips had been smeared on her makeup. Yu Lily was in the middle of putting on makeup in front of the mirror. When she saw the assistant come over, she put down the cotton pad and said, "You're more professional. You do it." The assistant touched up Yu Lily's makeup and quickly took her out. Yu Lily toasted along the way. There were many friends of Qiao Ziqing and Oh Huijin, as well as various relatives. Yu Lily's legs felt like they were about to break. Oh Ming supported her along the way. Their bodies were pressed against each other, and there was no gap in their warmth. That kind of distance made the two people who hadn't seen each other in a long time even more restless. The torment was too torturous. After Oh Ming calmed down a few times, he finally drank some wine with his buddies. By the time it was over, it was already very late. Yu Lily sat alone in the bride's room, waiting for Oh Ming to finish. But as she waited, she quickly fell asleep. In her dreams, she felt like her body was floating like a boat. She floated on until she finally reached the side of a warm lake. She opened her eyes tiredly and found her surroundings dark. Oh Ming was beside her. When he sensed that she had woken up, he asked, "You're awake?" Yu Lily got up and looked out the window. She yawned. "We're not home yet? I'm so tired." "Soon." Oh Ming reached out and took her hand. When he saw the beautiful and exquisite diamond ring on her finger, he smiled in satisfaction and said, "If you're tired, sleep a little longer. I'll carry you back later." Yu Lily leaned on his shoulder and glanced at the driver who was driving. Then, she quickly kissed him on the cheek. There was a big red mark on Oh Ming's face, which looked sexy and funny. The driver in front glanced back through the rearview mirror, but he didn't dare to look too much. He immediately turned his eyes away. Oh Ming's expression was the same as usual. It was as if he didn't feel anything. His lips still had a faint and evil smile. However, the hand that was holding her tightened slightly. His well-defined fingers shuttled back and forth between her fingers, and the speed was getting faster and faster. Lily didn't react at first, but soon, she felt her face burning. She clamped his hand hard and looked at the driver in front. When she found that he wasn't looking at her, she quietly breathed a sigh of relief. However, Ming seemed to have done it on purpose. He asked, "Why are you clamping it so tightly?" Hearing this, the driver immediately looked over with curiosity and surprise in his eyes. Lily's face was burning hot as she exclaimed, "What the hell?" Chapter 1454. Xiao Ziqing was right. She had to be prepared at all times. But, could she really have it just like that? Lily felt a little guilty. When she saw Xiao Ziqing's expectant gaze, she felt even more guilty. Did Ming's mother know that she had an abortion? If she didn't, would she be angry when she found out now? Lily was in a daze. Suddenly, someone nudged her. When Fenglin looked at her and asked, "What are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed?" Lily shook her head and replied, "Daddy, have you eaten? Are you hungry?" "I've had lunch. I'm not hungry now." When Fenglin smiled happily. The two dimples on his lips were very deep. He looked at her and asked, "Would you like to cook for me?" Lily giggled and hooked her arm around Wen Fenglin's and asked, "What would you like to eat, Daddy?" "I'll make it for you." "What about me?" Ming didn't back down. He walked over and said, "Hubby would like to eat sweet and sour pork ribs." Wen Fenglin smiled. Looking at the happy couple, he felt extremely comforted. Lily and Nanny Zhang went to buy some groceries and quickly started cooking at home. It had to be said that Lily's culinary skills were excellent. Not only did she look and smell great, but she also took care of everyone's taste buds. After the meal, everyone was in a good mood. After the meal, Lily sat on the sofa and dozed off. "Little pig, go to sleep after you're full." Ming sat beside her and put his arm around her shoulder so that she could lean on his shoulder. "Are you that tired? Let's go home early tonight. I won't torture you any longer." When Lily heard that, her eyes flew open and she looked around. When she realized that there was no one around, she let out a sigh of relief. She turned her head and slapped Ming's hand. "You're going to die. You said it so loudly. It'll be so embarrassing if someone hears you." Ming felt a little innocent and replied, "We're husband and wife. Isn't it normal to torture each other? Mom and Dad are both experienced people. No one will laugh at you." Lily was a little unhappy and turned her head away in a huff. But her body still leaned on Ming's. She felt tired and said, "I'm tired. Let's go back." "Well, let's go." Ming pulled her up, said goodbye to the elders, and drove home. When she got home, Lily didn't even want to take a shower. She just went straight to bed. Lily's nap was incredible. He fell into bed around 8 in the evening and woke up around 9 in the morning. Lily's head was heavy and her feet were light. When she got up, she felt her throat was very empty. She went to the bathroom to rinse her mouth, but as soon as the water entered her mouth, Lily felt her mouth was bitter. All of a sudden, Lily felt a wave of nausea in her throat, and she retched into the basin. The door to the bathroom wasn't closed. When Ming came back from his morning jog, he heard Lily retching. He walked in with a frown and gently patted her back, asking in a low voice, "What's wrong?" "I slept for too long. I feel terrible." Lily squeezed some toothpaste out of her mouth. "I'm fine now. I'll brush my teeth." Ming looked at her face. It was frighteningly pale. He reached out to touch her forehead and asked, "You look terrible. Where are you feeling uncomfortable?" "Oh." Lily held a mouthful of water in her mouth. As she brushed her teeth, she mumbled, "I slept for too long. I feel dizzy. I'm fine. You can go out." Chapter 1455. When Ming saw this, he felt that things weren't that simple. He reached out and patted her back. Are you feeling unwell from hunger? You slept for more than 10 hours. Lily retched, but nothing came out. She waved her hand and said, I'm fine. I'll brush my teeth first. In the time it took to brush her teeth, Lily vomited twice. Again, nothing came out, but her body felt even more uncomfortable. After rinsing her mouth, Lily felt like she was about to collapse. She stumbled back to the bed and lay on her stomach. Ming picked her up and walked out without saying a word. Lily was about to vomit from the shaking. She groaned in discomfort and impatiently complained, What are you doing? I'm going to vomit. It's uncomfortable. I'll take you to the hospital for a checkup. You've never been like this before. You must be sick. You don't have a fever. Maybe you're dehydrated from sleeping for too long and have a heat stroke. Lily gave up struggling. She lay on his body and lazily enjoyed the service of a human car. When they got into the car, Lily leaned against the seat in a daze. She looked at the scenery along the road and didn't say a word. She didn't even want to move a finger. When they arrived at the hospital, Lily was still weak. Ming had to carry her in. There were many people in the hospital. Ming had acquaintances in the hospital, so he didn't have to wait in line to get checked. Lily didn't have a fever. Her body temperature was a little low. Her face was pale, and her limbs were weak. She was nauseous and retching. The old doctor looked at Lily's condition again. After asking a few questions, he took off his glasses and placed them on the table. Go to the obstetrics and gynecology department for a blood test. Obstetrics and gynecology department? When they heard that word, Ming and Lily were stunned. They thought they had heard wrong. Doctor, did you just say, obstetrics and gynecology department? Ming found it hard to believe, but the smile on his lips continued to spread. Soon, it spread all over his face. He said, You mean, my wife is pregnant? Is that true? Ming's voice was a little loud. It sounded a little intimidating in the office. The old doctor picked his ear in disgust and said, How would I know? We'll only know after a checkup. Go and check. I can't guarantee that there's a child. Ha ha. Ming almost jumped up. He took Lily's hand and said, Let's go and see the gynecology department. Lily was still in a daze. She hadn't recovered from the shock when she heard the words. Being pulled by Ming, she lost her balance and leaned to the side. It wasn't much, and Lily managed to stabilize herself in an instant. In an instant, Ming held her in his arms and protected her like she was a treasure. Seeing that she was safe and sound, he said, Be careful. Take care of the child. Lily was shocked. The old doctor was even more disgusted. She tossed Lily's medical records aside and said, I didn't say that I'm definitely pregnant. Don't be too happy. Go, go, go. Hurry up and register for the obstetrics and gynecology department. Ming quickly nodded his head and pulled Lily up. As they walked, he placed his hands on either side of Lily and stared at her stomach as he said, Be careful, be careful. Chapter 1456. Lily's slightly lonely expression made Ming's heart ache. He placed his warm palm on her shoulder and said softly, No, you can be pregnant. Didn't the doctor say that there is a possibility that you are already pregnant? You have to believe the doctor. Let's go. We'll know after a checkup. Lily's heart felt a little uneasy, and she was always a little timid. But her desire for a child was very strong. After thinking about it again and again, Lily followed Ming to the obstetrics and gynecology department. After a series of examinations and inquiries, the senior female doctor pushed up her glasses and said, You are pregnant. Lily was stunned by the few words that were spoken so casually. Ming acted as if he had won a prize. He laughed loudly and said, Really? Ming's reaction was too exaggerated. The doctor was already used to it. She nodded and continued to ask, how long has it been since your period came? Great. That was great. You are really pregnant. Oh Ming hugged Yu Lily excitedly and shouted, Yu Lily, did you hear that? Pregnant. Pregnant. Yu Lily still couldn't believe it and said, didn't they say that it is difficult for me to get pregnant? My uterus is cold. If you have a cold uterus, you need to pay more attention. It is more difficult to get pregnant, but it is not impossible. You need to be careful when you exercise. It is not easy to protect the fetus with a cold uterus. The doctor lowered her head to write and said, when was the last time you had a period? More than a month ago. About 5-6 weeks. It has been so long. Didn't you notice it? The doctor looked at her and asked. My period is a bit messy. Sometimes it is less than a month. Sometimes it is 2 months, 3 months. The doctor frowned and said, you can't be like this. How can you not take care of it? When did you start to feel uncomfortable? A few days ago. I am very tired and sleepy every day, and I can't eat, especially at our wedding a few days ago. You just had your wedding a few days ago? Don't be too tired. I saw that you had an abortion before, and it was twins, right? A cold womb is probably the after effect of having an abortion. You didn't recuperate well during your confinement period, so your body is left with a lingering illness. The doctor asked meaningfully, do you have sexual intercourse frequently? Ahem. Yu Lily was a little embarrassed. Apart from my period, I have it every day. When the doctor heard that, she took a deep look at Oh Ming and said, young man, you're in good health. But next, you'll have to control yourself when you're pregnant. From your reaction, you're still in the early stages of pregnancy. Now is the most dangerous time. Don't do strenuous exercise. It's not good for the baby, and the pregnant woman will also feel uncomfortable. Yes, yes, yes. Oh Ming's eyes narrowed as he smiled. I definitely won't. I'll prescribe you some health supplements to supplement your calcium. Go and have a checkup. You can go back when you're done. The doctor returned the medical record to Yu Lily. Oh Ming quickly picked up the medical records and carefully protected Yu Lily as they walked. Be careful, be careful. The doctor found it funny, but at the same time, there was envy in his eyes. He shouted, Zhao Hong. After Yu Lily was done with the examination, Oh Ming was grinning from ear to ear the whole time. Chapter 1457. Oh Ming smiled even more foolishly. He touched his head and said, I'm going to be a father. Our children are back. Hearing that, Yu Lily smiled and reached out to touch her lower abdomen. She felt a little magical. She thought she would never be a mother in her life. She didn't expect it to be so soon. This child came more suddenly than she had imagined. That's great. God didn't deprive me of my right to be a mother. God is still kind. Oh Ming saw her little movement and stopped. He gently held her in his arms and whispered, don't think too much. In the future, I will be the father, and you will be the mother. These 5 children will definitely be born smoothly and healthily. Yu Lily was amused by Oh Ming's words. She reached out and patted him. What do you think I am? 5 children? Oh Ming laughed and hugged her. He kissed her on the cheek and said, let's go back, mother of the children. Well, yes, father of the children. As they went back and forth, their faces were filled with smiles. As soon as Oh Ming got in the car, he called Xiao Ziqing. It was already afternoon, and Xiao Ziqing seemed to be working out. When she received Oh Ming's call, she was a little out of breath and said, hello? If you have something to say it quickly. I'm very busy. Oh Ming smiled and said as he drove, Mom, I want to tell you something very happy. Do you want to guess? What is it? Just say it. I don't have time to guess. Xiao Ziqing was a little impatient. She was running and panting. Hey, why is your temper getting worse? Are you going through menopause? Get lost. If there's nothing else, I'm hanging up. Mom, you're going to be a grandmother. Oh Ming's words were a little sudden, and Xiao Ziqing was stunned. She immediately pressed the stop button on the treadmill and asked incredulously, "What did you just say?" "You're going to be a grandmother, I'm going to be a father, and you Lily is going to be a mother. Our little baby is going to be born." Xiao Ziqing laughed and said, "So fast. You're too amazing. I thought it would be difficult for Lily to get pregnant. I was already mentally prepared with your father, but you did this to me." Oh Ming had turned on the car phone and put it on speaker. When the couple heard this, they were both stunned. "Mom, how did you know?" Xiao Ziqing was in a good mood. She snorted and said, "Do you think Mommy doesn't know anything? Let me tell you, I know everything. Do you think you'll be fine just by hiding it from me? I will investigate it myself." In other words, Xiao Ziqing knew about this a long time ago, but she didn't use it to cause trouble for her. That meant that he had completely accepted Yu Lily, right? Realizing this, Yu Lily suddenly felt a little happy. An indescribable emotion rushed up from the bottom of his heart. Tears welled up in her eyes as she sobbed, "Mom." Suddenly hearing Yu Lily's voice, Xiao Ziqing was silent. He stopped the car on the side of the road and comforted her. "Why are you crying? Don't cry, don't cry. Be good and take good care of the child. Io, my wife, don't cry." Chapter 1458. Silly child. Xiao Ziqing's voice contained a hint of laughter. "What's the use of blaming you? You're still my only daughter-in-law." Hearing this, Yu Lily sobbed even harder and burst into tears. Oh Ming was at a loss. For a moment, he didn't know whether to hug her or hold her. He frantically wiped her tears and said, "Don't cry, don't cry." On the other end of the line, Xiao Ziqing laughed and said, "My silly son, during pregnancy, your emotions fluctuate greatly. It's normal to cry and laugh. Why are you acting like the idiot next door?" When she heard Xiao Ziqing's mocking words, Yu Lily's sobbing stopped and she burst out laughing. This made Oh Ming's cheeks turn red. He said, "Mom, my wife is still here." "How can you say that?" On the other end of the line, Xiao Ziqing laughed even more happily and said, "Do you have times when you're shy? Alright, I'm not talking to you anymore. I'm going to coax my wife." Oh Ming hung up the phone and took a tissue to wipe her tears. But he found that Yu Lily's body was trembling slightly. He lifted her face and saw a big smile on her tear-stained face. Oh Ming was speechless. This pregnant woman's emotions fluctuated greatly. One moment she was crying, the next moment she was laughing. But seeing her smile, Oh Ming relaxed a lot. He smiled bitterly and said, "You're going to make me crazy." Yu Lily laughed out loud and said, "Idiot next door, ha 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 ha." Oh Ming was speechless. Resigned to his fate, Oh Ming quickly drove back to the villa. As he drove, he made phone calls. Along the way, Oh Ming informed all his good friends. The first thing he called was Li Sicheng. The first thing he said was, "Second brother, I'm going to be a father." Li Sicheng replied, "Oh, I've been a father for a long time." "No, mine is different from yours," Oh Ming said. "How is it different?" "Oh, I'm the father of a pair of twins." "You only have one child, right?" "No, it's my first time being a father. I just found out today." "Shouldn't you congratulate me?" Li Sicheng was accompanying his wife for a prenatal checkup. Looking at Su Qianxi in the ultrasound room, he smiled and said, "Congratulations, but I'm going to be a father for the second time. You should congratulate me too." "Oh Ming. I can't continue this conversation." He hung up the phone and called Luo Zhan. Luo Zhan was typing on the keyboard in the company. Lines of code jumped out, and the psychological sense of achievement was also surging. The phone rang. It was Oh Ming. Before Luo Zhan could say, "Hello," he heard Oh Ming shout, "Luo Zhan, I'm going to be a father." Luo Zhan's hand on the keyboard trembled, and all the code on the computer was gone. His first reaction was to shout, F***CK. He laughed out loud and said, "My wife is pregnant. I'm finally going to be a father. Look at you, you're already 32 years old. Why don't you go find a partner and have fun?" Luo Zhan silently restored the data and said, "Didn't you just get married yesterday? Don't you usually get pregnant after half a year? Why don't you follow the rules? This is too much." Chapter 1459. Luo Zhan was speechless. "I can't continue the conversation." Hearing the sound of the phone being hung up, Ming suddenly felt a sense of satisfaction. Following that, he made a lot of calls to his other friends. Ming was extremely happy. When he got home, Yu Lily couldn't take it anymore. She collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep. Ming hugged her and slept in his clothes. His lips curled up, and he was in a good mood. She slept for the whole day. Yu Lily's head was spinning. When she woke up, Ming was no longer by her side. Ming. Yu Lily called his name, but there was no response. She put on her slippers and opened the bedroom door. She heard a light noise outside. She walked downstairs and saw Ming busy in the kitchen. He was very busy. When she got closer, Yu Lily was surprised. She burst out laughing and asked, "You're actually cooking?" When Ming heard that, he was caught off guard. His hands were scalded. He immediately pinched his ears and laughed. "I'm making soup. It's very simple. After it's done, I just need to add salt." "Did you add salt?" "Not yet. I'm afraid I'll add too much. You know better than me. Come over and add salt." Ming waved his hand. He put down the spoon in his hand and picked up the salt jar. Yu Lily walked over slowly. After washing her hands, she added seasoning to the soup. "Do you have parsley?" "No." Ming suddenly realized and said, "No wonder I always felt that something was missing when I bought the ingredients. It was the parsley. I'll go buy it." "No need. I'll drink it all the same." Yu Lily scooped some into a bowl and tasted it. She was a little surprised and said, "It's quite fragrant. You should try it too." "Really?" Ming suddenly felt that he was amazing. "It's my first time making soup." As he said that, he took a sip and frowned. "Are you serious?" There was only the taste of water. The ingredients hadn't even been boiled yet. It tasted terrible. Yu Lily saw his expression and said, "It's quite delicious. It's much better than the first time I made soup." "Really?" "Sure enough, I'm talented in everything I do. When I become a father in the future, I'll definitely be a good father." As he said this, he laughed foolishly and said, "Do you think it will be 5 boys or 5 girls?" Yu Lily almost choked. She elbowed him and laughed out loud. "Get lost. I think 3 girls and 2 boys would be better," Ming said with a serious face. "In that case, our family will have 3 little princesses and 2 little knights." "Why not a prince?" "The prince is the princess's partner. You can't have him so casually." Yu Lily couldn't help but smile. She looked up and saw his bright and deep peach blossom eyes. She put down the bowl in her hand and hugged him. "Thank you, Ming." The gentleness on Ming's face deepened. He held her in his arms and whispered, "Are you thanking me for giving you such a handsome husband? Go away, shameless." Yu Lily patted him and smiled. "I thought I wouldn't be able to have children in the future. Ever since the twins, don't mention that." Ming covered her mouth and said, "The quintuplets will be angry." Yu Lily was speechless. What's with that look? The quintuplets will really be angry. Ming smiled brightly and lowered his head to kiss her lips. "Don't think about the unhappy things in the past. Those 2 children are not fated with us. In the future, we will have more children. Dash. Chapter 1460. I hope so. Yu Lily leaned against Oh Ming's chest, feeling a little guilty. The arrival of this child was a little sudden, and her heart had always had a kind of surreal feeling. It was another night of overtime. It had been a week since Oh Ming and Yu Lily had gotten married. Yi Yu hadn't seen Li Jinnan for a week. She had heard that Li Jinnan had been on a business trip abroad and was very busy. Many people hadn't seen him and didn't know where he had gone. In fact, even she didn't know about it. Yi Yu's feelings had been a little complicated these days. Perhaps it was a common problem for humans. They would always pay attention to someone they had slept with. Even though she knew it was impossible for her to be with him, the lack of any news made her very concerned. Yi Yu tried hard to put those thoughts aside and went out. Just as she hailed a cab, she received a text message on her phone. It was from a familiar number. Shen Luopen. Do you have time these days? I have something to discuss with you. Yi Yu stared at the number for a long time before closing the page. Her phone vibrated again. It's about the divorce. Yi Yu was stunned. Shen Luopen wants to divorce me? She stared at the string of words for a long time. An inexplicable feeling rose in her heart. Am I finally going to be liberated? But, deep in her heart, there was a ferment of pain. Wave after wave, it gripped the tip of her heart, and it was difficult to bear. Tears welled up in her eyes, and Yi Yu laughed out loud. She stared at the string of words on her phone and took a deep breath. Let's get divorced. Everyone will feel better after a divorce. But, this time, he wants a divorce. Who is it because of? Enchanting? Or Guan Kui? Yi Yu felt a little upset and replied, when? Shen Luopen, as soon as possible. Yi Yu returned home, took a shower, and collapsed into bed. She slept until dawn. The next day, she went to the office and applied for leave from the HR manager. Her leave was quickly approved, and she bought the fastest ticket back to the capital. It was another foggy day. At a glance, it was all gray. This is the capital. Just like the people in the imperial capital, no one could see through them. She called Shen Luopen, but he seemed to be busy. After a long time, he picked up the phone. Hello? Have you arrived? Yeah, I'm at the airport. Where can I find you? Yi Yu went straight to the point. There was silence on the other end. She waited for a few seconds before asking, what's wrong? Are you that impatient? Shen Luopen's voice seemed to carry a hint of bitterness. His indescribable emotions seeped into her heart. Her heart ached, and she felt a lump in her throat. She almost couldn't hold back her tears. The feelings they had built up over the years couldn't just disappear like that. For many years, she had dreamed of marrying her beloved brother Luopen. However, the grievances she had suffered over the past few years would not vanish just because of a few words from him. When he hated and resented her because of Guan Kui, when he abandoned her because of Enchanting, she would also be in pain. When there was no trust in a relationship, there was no need to continue it. No matter what their relationship was. Chapter 1461. Yeah. I'm at the hospital. Come to the hospital. Shen Luopen added, this is the hospital you came to the last time. With that, he hung up. Yi Yu laughed bitterly. The last hospital was the one Guan Kui had been in. His meaning couldn't be any clearer. Shen Luopen was with Guan Kui. Yi Yu hailed a cab to the hospital. She quickly found the ward she had been to the last time she had visited. Inside the ward, Guan Kui sat in her wheelchair. In her hands was a beautiful white wedding gown. Her face was filled with a blissful smile as she asked, Mommy, do you think I look good in this wedding gown? The wedding dress was huge. It was adorned with extravagantly beautiful sparkling diamonds. She gestured to herself and looked at Yi Tian with a radiant smile. Shen Luopen bought me this wedding dress. I love it so much. Yi Tian looked at Guan Kuei warmly and took the wedding dress from her with both hands. She gestured to Guan Kuei and said, "When Shen Luo and comes back, Mommy will help you change into this. We'll wear it for him to see." Yi Yuyu felt a dull pain in her chest. She stopped at the door of the ward and looked in. She saw her biological mother smiling warmly in front of another girl. Her heart was numb. Hadn't I been like this all these years? It didn't seem to make any difference. The sound of leather shoes came from behind her. It was the sound of calm and steady footsteps. Yi Yuyu turned her head. At a glance, she saw a face that she was all too familiar with. Shen Luo and seemed much more tired than the last time they had met. His cheeks were sunken, and there were dark circles under his eyes. There was a faint green ring around his lips. He looked much more haggard. He must have had a hard time these past few days. Was it because of Enchanting? Or was it because of Guan Kuei? Or was it because of me? Yi Yuyu couldn't help but laugh at that thought. Shen Luo looked at her and asked, "You're here?" Looking at Shen Luo, Yi Yuyu's lips curled up into a smile as she said, "Isn't that obvious? When can we sign?" "I'm very busy." Shen Luo gazed deeply into her eyes. Then, he averted his gaze and looked inside. Guan Kuei and Yi Tian were both looking in their direction. It was obvious that they had noticed their presence. Guan Kuei waved at Shen Luo and smiled sweetly. "Luo en." Shen Luo smiled gently at her and said, "Let's do it now. You'll be free in the future." Her eyes were looking at Guan Kuei, but her words were directed at Yi Yuyu. She suddenly thought of what Shen Luo had said on the phone just now. "Are you that impatient?" Yi Yuyu's heart sank. When she reached the Civil Affairs Bureau, Yi Yuyu took out the marriage certificate that she had treasured for a long time. When she replaced it with a divorce certificate, her heart didn't waver at all. As if that was how it should be. When they left the Civil Affairs Bureau together, he seemed to be in a terrible mood. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he lit up a cigarette in frustration. Originally, Shen Luo did not like to smoke. When Yi Yuyu saw the way Shen Luo was smoking, the first person that came to mind was Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan was the most good-looking man she had ever seen smoking. Shen Luo noticed that she was a little distracted. Annoyed, he took a step forward and held her arm. Chapter 1462. Shen Luo looked into her eyes with a violent rage. His grip on her arm tightened as he said, "Yi Yuyu, don't you like me very much? Don't you love me? Why have you changed so quickly?" When Yi Yuyu heard that, she looked into his eyes. Her initial helplessness slowly faded. When he saw the look in Yi Yuyu's eyes, Shen Luo's heart grew colder. This pair of eyes that used to light up whenever they looked at him, this pair of eyes that used to smile whenever they saw him, now, how did it change? Everything was different from before. Shen Luo's grip on her hand tightened. An indescribable emotion welled up in his chest, threatening to burst out. "Mr. Shen, please conduct yourself with dignity." Yi Yuyu's voice was calm and distant as she waved her hand away. Shen Luo's grip on her hand didn't loosen in the slightest. Yi Yuyu looked into his eyes with a hint of sarcasm. "What do you mean by this? Get your ex-wife back? What about the one in the hospital? She can't take any provocation now." She had heard about Guan Kuei's illness. Even under such circumstances, Shen Luo was willing to divorce her and marry Guan Kuei. After all these years, he had treated her with true love. Yi Yuyu's face was full of sarcasm. It made Shen Luo's heart ache. Suddenly, he felt a lump in his throat. Shen Luo looked at the woman in front of him. Her eyes were still the same, but the distance between them had grown further and further apart. The childhood sweetheart he had once been so familiar with had become a stranger in the blink of an eye. They looked at each other without a word. Looking back, all that was left was the distance between them. "Yi Yuyu." Shen Luo's voice was a little hoarse. He held the cigarette between his fingers. The smoke rose into the air and clouded his eyes. Do you still love me? Yi Yu stared at him for a moment before softly replying, I did. I did. Shen Luo and had gotten the answer he wanted. It was just that his heart felt even more empty. He released Yi Yu's hand and laughed bitterly. He put out the cigarette in the trash can beside him. Then, he got into his car and headed in the direction of the hospital. Yi Yu watched his back view from behind. Her heart couldn't help but tremble. Do you still love me? On countless nights, Yi Yu would ask herself the same question. Do you still love Shen Luo? Still love. However, she could no longer afford to love him. Goodbye, Shen Luo. Yi Yu stood rooted to the spot for a long time before taking a step forward. However, just as she was about to move, a black Bentley by the roadside whistled. Yi Yu looked in the direction of the voice and saw half a face peeking out from the window of the back seat. Her eyebrows were exquisite like a painting, and her lines were cold and firm. At this moment, a pair of phoenix eyes were looking straight at him, calm and profound. It was faint, but it made Yi Yu's heart flutter. She walked over. Before she reached the car, the chauffeur opened the door for her. Until they sat down, no one spoke. There was a faint scent of aromatherapy in the Bentley. As Yi Yu sat, she couldn't help but look out the window. Among the cars coming and going, there were also many men and women who were about to divorce or had already divorced, driving side by side. But what were their feelings like? She turned her head to look at Li Jinan and asked, How did you know I was here? Chapter 1463. Li Jinan remained nonchalant. He glanced at her and replied, I was just passing by. Yi Yu didn't believe him. She turned to look at him. Her face was pale. In his palm, there was a dark red book. The words, divorce certificate, were written on it. Li Jinan's mood improved. Let's go eat. What do you want to eat? Li Jinan moved closer to her and held her tightly clenched hand. Yi Yu's hand stiffened. She instinctively wanted to withdraw her hand. However, Li Jinan's grip tightened. Without a word, he flipped open the dark red booklet in her hand. When he saw Yi Yu's photo on the booklet, he felt relieved. Yi Yu looked at him and allowed him to hold the divorce certificate. Li Jinan didn't look well either. His eyes were dark, and his facial features were more pronounced than they had been a week ago. He had lost weight. However, compared to Shen Luo, his condition was undoubtedly much better. I don't feel like eating. Yi Yu turned her head to look out the window. She was feeling a little down. Oh, right. GM Li, I want to resign. Li Jinan paused in the middle of flipping through the divorce certificate. He glanced sideways and saw her frail back. He closed the divorce certificate and asked, Why? I don't want to work anymore. You don't think I'm being treated well? No. I just want to change places. I don't want to stay in Kingstown anymore. I want to have some fun on my own for a while. Yi Yu kept looking out the window. The scenery flashed past her so quickly that it made her dizzy. Where are you going? I don't know. Yi Yu turned her head to look at him and smiled. She was probably going to a place far away where no one knew her and start over. Regardless of whether it was Kingstown or the capital, no one needed her anymore. She had once thought that the mother she loved the most in her life had become someone else's mother. The man she had once loved the most was about to marry Guan Kui and hated her to the core. She had no feelings for the Shen family, and even less for the Guan family. As for Kingstown, Yi Qianqian could go find her own happiness. She would only do some trivial work in the company and could be replaced at any time. No one needed her anymore. At that thought, Yi Yu's heart ached. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly suppressed them and turned to look out the window. Li Jinan could tell that she was in a bad mood. He put the divorce certificate back and nodded. That's fine too. I'll go with you. Yi Yuyu's heart tightened. She shook her head and said, "There's no need. You still have a lot of work to do in the company. I can't hold you up. It's okay, I have my brother." He had complete trust in Li Xiqing's ability. Yi Yuyu was speechless. After a long time, she finally said, "I want to go alone. Just pretend that I don't exist. If you're happy, just pay attention to me. If you're not, just ignore me." Yi Yuyu was speechless. How could she ignore such a big man? Li Jinan acted as if he hadn't noticed her resistance and asked, "Do you want to go to the country or overseas? There's a starlight town in New Zealand. I heard that it's very beautiful. During the day, it's filled with birds and fragrant flowers. At night, the sky is filled with stars and there are fireflies flying in the air. It's like being in a fairyland." Chapter 1464. When I grow up, I want to go to New Zealand. I heard that there's a small town called Starlight. During the day, it's full of birds and flowers. At night, wow, there's a sky full of stars. There are fireflies everywhere. It's so beautiful. It was just like the plot of an anime. Brother Luopen, can you take me there next time? Back then, Shen Luopen smiled and lowered his eyes to look at her. There was an indescribable tenderness in his eyes. He nodded and said, "As long as our Yuyu is happy." The words were still the same, so familiar. However, the person sitting beside her had changed. His heart felt like it was being gripped by a devil's claw. It was so unbearable that he couldn't breathe. Yi Yuyu's vision blurred, but she quickly lowered her head and turned her head away. She didn't want him to see her pathetic state. Li Jinan didn't say anything else. He just sat there quietly. Soon, the driver sent them to a restaurant. He got out of the car first and opened the door for her. Yi Yuyu hesitated for a moment before walking down. She casually ordered a few dishes. She didn't eat much before claiming that she was full. Li Jinan was not in a hurry. He ate slowly, wiped the corner of his mouth, and said, "I'll send you back later." "Let's go back to Kingstown together," Yi Yuyu suggested. Li Jinan hadn't expected Yi Yuyu to say that. He was stunned for a moment before nodding his head. Okay. Everything seemed very harmonious and quiet. When they arrived at the airport, Li Jinan asked for Yi Yuyu's identification. After they bought their plane tickets, they returned to Kingstown together. Li Jinan's chauffeur had been waiting outside the airport for a long time. After sending Yi Yuyu upstairs, Li Jinan turned to leave. When Yi Yuyu returned to her room and looked out the window, she realized that the car didn't leave immediately. It stayed for a while before slowly driving away. He looked at the time. Yi Qianqian must have been working overtime. It was already past the time to get off work, but she still hadn't returned. It was a big house with 2 bedrooms and a living room, but it was a little empty. For some reason, Yi Yuyu felt a little lonely. Once this feeling surged up, it was hard to suppress. Her heart felt empty, and she subconsciously thought of Shen Luopen. Shen Luopen must be happy about the divorce, right? Guan Kui and Yi Tian were the same. Her vision was blurry, and her heart felt like it was being squeezed. She couldn't stop herself from crying. She took a deep breath and wiped her face. She stood up and began to pack her luggage. After resigning, he had to go out for a walk. For so many years, she had been accommodating and tolerating. She had long had enough. But, where was he going? Li Jinan's mood was a little strange. After so many days of running around, he didn't feel as good as he had imagined when he saw them divorce. It was obvious that Yi Yuyu was devastated. But it didn't matter. There was still a long way to go, and things would slowly get better. However, he had to call and ask for leave as soon as possible. Li Jinan called Li Xiqing. The other side seemed to be busy. The sound of children playing was very loud, and it could be heard clearly over the phone. Wrong number? Or are you looking for me? Li Xiqing did not mince his words. This guy would never come to a temple without a reason. Chapter 1465. It was a romantic tourist destination with men and women of all colors. By the time Yi Yuyu reached the hotel, it was already the next morning. Because she had signed up for the Freedom Travel Hotel package, the room was a huge sea-view double room. Yi Yuyu hung up her clothes on a hanger and put them in the closet. She changed into a new set of clothes and went to the beach. The sky was high and the sea was wide. The turquoise seawater gurgled. The sunlight shone on it, and the light reflected off the bodies of the passers-by. It was so dazzling that it made one feel hot. Yi Yuyu was wearing a floor-length dress, classic beach slippers, a sun hat, and sunglasses. As she watched the tourists from all over the world frolicking and chasing each other, her mood seemed to have lightened. She ordered a glass of fruit juice and found a beach chair by the water's edge to sit down. She lifted her dress a little, and the seawater rushed up to her ankles. It was very cold, but it was very comfortable in such weather. Yi Yuyu kicked it a few times and leaned back comfortably on the chair. She closed her eyes. After about 10 minutes, someone came over and said, "Miss Yi, your drink is here." It wasn't the fluent English that she had just heard. Instead, it was a deep and formal Mandarin accent. The voice was very clear and familiar. When Yi Yuyu heard the voice, her eyes flew open. She turned her head and saw the determined face of a man. Li Jinan was wearing a pair of sunglasses and a plain white linen shirt. It accentuated his already bulging muscles, making them look even more well-proportioned and sexy. "Why are you here?" Yi Yuyu sat up immediately and looked at him in disbelief. "You followed me?" she asked in surprise. "Of course not. I signed up for a tour with you. Have you forgotten?" Li Jinan was unruffled. He didn't seem embarrassed at all that he had been exposed. Instead, his expression was indescribably natural. He sat down beside Yi Yuyu and said, "We just boarded the same plane. Didn't you see?" Yi Yuyu found it a little illogical. She looked at him and said, "How is that possible? You must have been following me. How could there be such a coincidence?" "I don't know why it's such a coincidence." Li Jinan suddenly leaned in and slowly said, "Perhaps it's fate. Wherever you are, my body can't control itself and automatically follows you." When Yi Yuyu heard that, she laughed angrily and said, "Nonsense. There's no such thing as fate. You're just following me." Li Jinan removed his sunglasses and chuckled as he replied, "Yeah, I'm following you. But, I'm following you openly. You just didn't realize it. Don't blame me." "Excuses." Li Jinan raised his eyebrows slightly. He raised the drink in his hand and said, "It's a vacation. Of course, it's only fun when there are at least two of us. If you're alone, you'll only get more bored." Yi Yuyu didn't want to pay any attention to him. She snatched the drink from his hand and took a deep gulp. She sat down on the chair and stared ahead angrily. Li Jinan followed suit and sat down. He gazed into the distance. The golden sunlight sprinkled down, plating the originally clear mirror-like surface with a layer of crystal light, magnificent and magnificent. Flocks of seagulls swept across the water, energetic and flamboyant. Everything was just perfect. He turned to look at Yi Yuyu and asked, "What's the point of just sitting here? Why don't I take you somewhere fun?" Chapter 1466. What? Let's go. Indeed, Li Jinan took Yi Yuyu to many places. The Hawaiian Islands were huge, and they had all kinds of classic attractions. It was magnificent. Yi Yuyu hadn't intended to go anywhere when she came there. She had only wanted to play in the water, bask in the sun, and be a quiet, salted fish. But, being led by Li Jinan all the way, she found it very refreshing and exciting. After leaving the volcano, Yi Yuyu's stomach was growling with hunger. Although she had bought snacks along the way to fill her stomach, it wasn't as reliable as a proper meal. Yi Yu rubbed her already rumbling stomach and said, "I'm hungry. Let's go back and eat." Li Jinnan was hungry as well, but seeing how much fun Yi Yu was having, he didn't want to interrupt her. When he heard her say that, he led her to the route that they had planned out. There was a restaurant near the hotel that served Western cuisine. After Yi Yu ordered her food, she ate some appetizers. When the main course was served, she wasn't as hungry anymore. Yi Yu sipped her soup slowly and watched Li Jinnan cut the steak. When Li Jinnan was done cutting the steak, he picked it up and handed it to her. Yi Yu immediately picked it up and exchanged it with him. A whole steak in exchange for a cut steak. What a bargain. Yi Yu picked up the fork and started eating. She ate with relish and looked very satisfied. As she ate, she began to doze off. Li Jinnan saw that and couldn't help but speed up his eating, but his posture remained elegant. In the end, when Li Jinnan finished eating, Yi Yu was still eating slowly. Her eyelids were fighting to stay open. "Let's go back to the hotel," Li Jinnan said. When Yi Yu heard that, she immediately shielded the plate in front of her and said, "I haven't finished eating yet." Li Jinnan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "You're already so sleepy, and you still want to finish eating? Don't eat too much before bed. It's not good for your stomach." "I can still fight a little more," Yi Yu said. She picked up her fork and put 2 mouthfuls of food into her mouth. After that, she drank a mouthful of water. When she finished the food, she realized that her stomach was already bloated. Li Jinnan laughed and said, "Let's go." Yi Yu put down her fork reluctantly and stood up. Perhaps it was because she was really exhausted that she couldn't even walk steadily. She stumbled and almost fell. At that critical moment, Li Jinnan rushed forward to support her. Yi Yu's body fell into his arms. The man's scorching temperature was very warm. Yi Yu was beyond sleepy. She stood up straight and forced herself to walk forward. Li Jinnan followed behind her silently. After paying the bill, he left with her. Just as Yi Yu was about to return to her room, she suddenly realized something very important. Yi Yu was shocked. "Oh no. What's wrong?" It was rare for Li Jinnan to see her so nervous. "My handbag is missing. There are room cards, passports, and cell phones inside." It was only then that Li Jinnan realized that Yi Yu had such a thing on her. The bag was about the size of a mobile phone, so it was really inconspicuous. Yi Yu began to panic. "Ah! How did this happen? Am I not allowed to go back? My passport is in there too." "That won't happen," Li Jinnan said. "Think about where you dropped it. We'll go back and look for it." Yi Yu was a little lost. "I don't know, dash." Chapter 1467. Li Jinnan didn't know what to do with her. In exasperation, he took out his room card and said, "Why don't you sleep in my room first? I'll go back and look for it. I have my passport with me." "Ah." Yi Yu felt that it was inappropriate. She felt a little embarrassed and said, "I don't think that's a good idea, it's fine. You must be exhausted today. Rest early. Leave the rest to me." Li Jinnan stuffed the room card into Yi Yu's hand and turned around. Yi Yu held the room card in her hand and stared at his back. She was a little stunned. After a long time, she turned around and followed the location of the room card to look for it. Li Jinnan looked around in the direction he had come from. From what he remembered, the bag should have been white. It was about the size of a cell phone and had a long strap. However, after looking all around, he didn't see the bag. Could it have fallen into the volcanic area? Li Jinnan felt that something was wrong. After calling for help, he couldn't take it anymore. For the past few days, he had been busy running around the capital. He hadn't slept since the previous day. During that time, he was either going through documents on the plane or looking for someone to play with in Hawaii. His head hurt. Li Jinan felt helpless. He had no choice but to return to the hotel and use his passport to get another room. However, the receptionist politely told him that one ID could only register for one room. Li Jinan went out for another round. He realized that all the hotels nearby were either too far away or fully booked. Apart from some of his ID, he didn't have anything else on him. After going around in circles, Li Jinan returned to the hotel he had been at. After informing the receptionist that he had lost his room card, he gave her the room number and paid for a new room card. He returned to the room Yi Yu was in. When Li Jinan opened the door, his mind was filled with thoughts of how to explain his actions to Yi Yu. Actually, he hadn't intended to stay in the same room as her. He had merely wanted her to have a good rest. However, when Li Jinan opened the door, all his words were stuck in his chest. Yi Yu was already sound asleep. She had only taken off her shoes and was curled up on the blanket. Her breathing was even. She looked very peaceful. Perhaps she was exhausted, but she didn't notice that he had entered. Li Jinnan's explanation died in his throat. Seeing her posture, he suddenly felt a strange feeling in his heart. This feeling was inexplicable. Even Li Jinnan himself couldn't tell what kind of emotion it was, but it began to swell violently in his heart. It had already greatly affected his emotions. Walking over quietly, Li Jinnan saw the way she looked, and the corners of his mouth slightly raised. He gently moved her a little, then flipped up the quilt and covered her body. Yi Yu still hadn't woken up. Her breathing was getting heavier, and she was fast asleep. Li Jinnan quietly took off his shoes. He didn't dare to shower. He switched off the lights and lay down on the sofa with his eyes closed. That night, the atmosphere was very tranquil. Just like the climate in Hawaii, it was so comfortable that it made people fascinated. When Yi Yu woke up, the sky was already bright. After sleeping in the same position for so long, his body felt a little sore. Chapter 1468. Yi Yu's heart skipped a beat. She suddenly turned her head. When she saw Li Jinnan, she suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Li Jinnan seemed to have heard the movement. He frowned, then opened his eyes and looked over. When he saw Yi Yu's shocked expression, he immediately sobered up. Li Jinnan sat up and looked at her. "You're awake?" I couldn't find your bag. One ID can only be used for one room, so." Yi Yu was a little embarrassed. She stood up and said, "GM Li, thank you." "You're welcome." Li Jinnan looked at the time and said, "Let's go for breakfast." Yi Yu had a good sleep, but the dark circles under Li Jinnan's eyes had deepened. Well, after sleeping on the sofa for the whole night, Yi Yu felt even more guilty, but she didn't say anything. She went straight into the bathroom to wash up and then came out. Li Jinnan was on the phone. When he saw her come out, he didn't have much of a reaction. He said to the person on the phone, "Well, I have to go. Goodbye." Yi Yu felt a little strange. Staying in the same room with Li Jinnan, she had a very strange feeling in her heart. It was like having an affair. Although she and Shen Luo were divorced, perhaps because this idea was deeply rooted in her heart, Yi Yu couldn't get rid of it. Bah. 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 What affair? Although she had slept in the same room as Li Jinnan, at least nothing had happened. Yi Yu encouraged herself. By the time she put on her shoes, Li Jinnan was already done. "What do you want to eat?" "I'm fine with anything." Yi Yu was very easygoing and followed Li Jinnan to the dining room. There were many people with Asian skin in the dining room. Yi Yu felt very close to him. "Are you used to it?" Li Jinnan opened the menu and asked casually. "It's fine. I feel quite comfortable here." Yi Yu looked around and was in a good mood. Li Jinnan looked up at her, and his lips were slightly raised. He seemed to be in a very good mood. After ordering something, he handed the menu to the waiter. With his long fingers crossed, Li Jinan looked at Yi Yu and said, "In the future, do you have any plans?" Yi Yu thought for a moment and shook her head. "Not at the moment. I want to play for a while. The world is still very big, and I want to see it." "Yeah." Li Jinan put his hands down and nodded his head. "This kind of life isn't bad, but I feel that young people should strive harder. At your age and in your current state, it's the best time to work hard." Yi Yu knew what he meant and asked, "You want me to act?" "I have a few good roles recently," Yi Yu smiled. "I think it's better to live a simple life. After I come back from my vacation, I want to learn something to enrich myself. Then, I'll find a small place with mountains and rivers to live." Such a life was poetic and beautiful. Chapter 1469. Yi Yu was stunned. She looked at Li Jinan as if she already knew what he meant. When Li Jinan met her gaze, he immediately said, "It's too boring to live alone. Humans are social animals. If you're alone, you'll be bored to death. You can get a friend to stay with you." Yi Qianqian was speechless. "I'll get a dog and let it watch the sunrise and sunset with me." When Yi Yu said that, she couldn't maintain the expression on her face. Her hands trembled slightly as they rested on the table. "When the time comes, we'll get a dog together and watch the sunrise and sunset together." His warm and mellow voice seemed to ring in her ears. The same words were said again, but they had changed from "we" to "me." Li Jinan sensed that something was wrong with her mood and didn't continue. He began to reflect on himself. Was I too anxious? Yi Yu's emotions had clearly not stabilized. Divorcing Shen Luo and seemed to be a huge blow to her. Shen Luo and Li Jinan's eyes were as bright as the stars in the night sky. They darkened as he said, "How can a dog be fun? A person can be fun as they please." At that moment, a yellow-skinned waiter walked over with a tray of food. When he heard that, he chuckled. Yi Yu's face suddenly turned red. She glared at him. The sadness in her heart immediately turned into anger. She said, "How can you be so bad?" "Am I bad?" Li Jinan looked as if he didn't know what was going on. "What are you thinking about?" Yi Yu took the toast and took a bite. She decided not to talk to him anymore. Li Jinan didn't give in and said, "How can your thoughts be so bad? And to think that you're a girl." Yi Yu was so angry that her masseter muscles tightened. She growled, "Isn't that what you mean?" "Yes," Li Jinan admitted it openly. Yi Yu choked on her toast. She glared at him with an expression that said she wanted to strangle him. Li Jinan immediately handed her the water. Slowly. Yi Yu took 2 large gulps. She was so angry that her chest hurt. "Are you angry?" Li Jinan chuckled. "That won't do. We still have to go out to play later. I'll be embarrassed if you do this." Yi Yu had originally been angry, but when she heard his cheerful voice, her anger evaporated. She glared at him and retorted, "Who wants to hang out with you? Hey, you're not even giving me a chance to redeem myself now." Li Jinan looked a little exasperated. He picked up a sandwich and asked, "Do you want a sandwich?" "Not eating. I want to eat bread." "Order it yourself." Yi Yu didn't stand on ceremony. She held the bread in her hand tightly. Li Jinan stared ahead, but his eyes weren't on the bread. They were on Yi Yu. His aggressive gaze made Yi Yu feel uncomfortable. She said, "Don't look at me." Li Jinan laughed and remarked, "You look good." Yi Yu felt that she had been praised, and her mood improved. Before she could react, Li Jinan leaned over and took a bite of her bread. His warm and moist lips even grazed her palm. Yi Yu's body stiffened. She suddenly shivered and froze on the spot. Li Jinan chewed. As if he hadn't noticed Yi Yu's reaction, he said, "Not bad." Chapter 1470. Yi Yu saw his deep gaze and blushed. She put the bread back on the plate and said, "You." Li Jinnan reached his hand out to take it and said, "Thank you." Just as he was about to say thank you, Yi Yu stopped him with a slap of her hand. Yi Yu was a little angry as she asked, "What are you doing? Didn't you give the bread to me to eat? It would be a waste not to have it." "No way. Let go of it." If she gave it to Li Jinnan now, wouldn't he end up eating the place where she had eaten? That's so disgusting. No. When Li Jinnan heard that, he looked at her hand and said, "You're the one who's taking advantage of me." Yi Yu immediately retracted her hand. He picked up the toast and began to eat it in a leisurely manner. "You." Yi Yu's face burned. She had never imagined that Li Jinnan, who looked so decent, would act like a hooligan. Furthermore, he was trying to steal her food. How despicable. Li Jinnan acted as if he hadn't seen it. He pushed the sandwich over and said, "I don't like sandwiches." Yi Yu had already eaten half of the toast. Her stomach was already half full. When she saw the sandwich in its entirety, she knew that she wouldn't be able to finish it. The other half of the toast had already been eaten by Li Jinnan. Other than the sausages and biscuits, she didn't have anything else to eat. She picked up the sandwich angrily. After 2 bites, Yi Yu felt sick of it. The sandwiches at this place were really poorly made. It was no wonder that Li Jinnan refused to eat it. TSK. What a scheming man. After putting the sandwich down, Yi Yu continued to eat the sausages. She picked up the knife and fork and cut the sausages into 8 pieces, just like Li Jinnan. She felt much better. After a few bites, she suddenly realized that the sandwich in front of her had disappeared. She looked up and saw Li Jinnan eating the sandwich that she had just eaten. "Didn't you say that you didn't like it?" Yi Yu growled through gritted teeth. Li Jinnan didn't even look up as he replied, "You're too wasteful. Who asked me to be with you? I can only eat the leftovers." Yi Yu became even angrier and retorted, "You were the one who stole my bread. Of course I can't finish so many sandwiches. But you can eat the grilled sausage," Li Jinnan said calmly and glanced at her. "TSK, you obviously don't want to eat it. You don't want to eat it either. So I gave it to you. If you don't want it, then give it to me. Do you think I'm a good-for-nothing?" "No, I'm just being modest." "Bah. You obviously don't want to eat it." "Aren't I eating right now?" Li Jinnan looked at her with a straight face and asked, "How can you distort the truth?" Yi Yu was speechless. She finally understood that there was actually such a shameless person in this world. She couldn't even win an argument against such a fellow, and she was even called a thief by a thief. Yi Yu laughed in exasperation and said, "I didn't expect you to be so eloquent." "Just a so-so," Li Jinnan said humbly. He then continued, "I'm just a little better than you." Yi Yu viciously stabbed the fork into a piece of intestine. She picked it up and bit down hard. She deliberately didn't bite through it and tore it apart. Li Jinnan's throat tightened as he watched. His mouth felt dry. Chapter 1471. Li Jinnan quickly lowered his head. He was shocked by his own reaction. On the other hand, Yi Yu assumed that her threat had successfully intimidated Li Jinnan. Her initial anger dissipated by a large margin. Li Jinnan finished the rest of his food in silence. He took a deep breath to calm himself down and said, "Let's go." "Humph." Yi Yu leisurely took a sip of water and stood up. Without a word, she led the way. The two of them first went to the embassy to report the loss of their passports. Unexpectedly, there were many people in the embassy. They queued for a while, and half the day passed just like that. By the time the two of them came out, it was already afternoon. The two of them were in much better shape than they had been the night before. It was just a pity that they didn't have a place to play. In the end, they unanimously decided to go to Binhai Bar. There were quite a number of bars in Binhai. There were many people inside, and every bar was very lively. It was Li Jinnan's first time visiting a bar in a foreign country. There were people from all over the world, and all of them were talking in different languages. It was a good thing that the host of the bar was speaking English, so they didn't have to be at a loss for words. Many of the people who came were tourists from all over the country. They were very enthusiastic and open. When they saw Li Jinnan, a blonde woman whistled at him. She was wearing a sexy bikini and walked over to Li Jinnan. In broken Mandarin, she asked, "Hey, are you from China?" Li Jinnan's face was expressionless. He nodded his head and didn't reply. When the woman saw that, she leaned forward and asked, "Are you alone?" She seemed to be unable to continue. She quickly reverted to fluent American English and said, "Do you want to join us for a drink?" "I'm sitting over there. My friends and I are there." Li Jinnan looked in the direction she was pointing and immediately saw a large group of foreigners. There were both black and white people. Many of them were whistling and waving in their direction. It was as if they were looking forward to it. Yi Yuyu squeezed through the crowd and saw that Li Jinnan was being hit on. She shook her head and clicked her tongue. Indeed, a good-looking person would stand out no matter where he went. When Li Jinnan saw the scene, he frowned. He didn't really interact with strangers, especially since his English wasn't that good. Just as he was about to reject the offer, he caught a glimpse of a petite figure hidden in the middle of the crowd, looking in his direction. Li Jinnan took a step forward and pulled Yi Yuyu over. He told the woman, "I'm not alone. I'm with my girlfriend." Yi Yuyu was a little confused. She was firmly held in his arms. When she saw the surprised look on the American girl's face, she laughed dryly and reached out her hand to greet, "Hello." The blonde beauty laughed and said, "That's even better. We really like playing with Chinese people. Your Chinese language is very interesting, and your Chinese people are also very good looking. We like Chinese people. Miss, I'm Tina." The beauty extended her hand to Yi Yuyu with a bright smile. Yi Yuyu instinctively reached out to shake his hand. With a smile, she replied, "Yo-yo." With that, she pointed at Li Jinnan and said, "My boss, Nan." Chapter 1472. Li Jinnan's hand remained in front of Yi Yuyu's chest. His arm was muscular and strong. His black short-sleeved t-shirt accentuated his figure perfectly. The lines of his muscles made one's blood boil. When she heard Li Jinnan's sudden question, Yi Yuyu laughed and immediately denied it. No, it was obvious that the beauty was interested in Li Jinnan. There was no way she was going to stand in the way of Li Jinnan's romance. When the beauty saw that they each had their own version of events, she understood and said, "Okay, everyone is having fun. Come, let's have some fun together." With that, she reached out and pulled Yi Yuyu over. As Yi Yuyu was being pulled away, she didn't forget to turn back and tug on Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan was pulled along, and naturally, they walked over. A bunch of people were sitting together and reveling. In front of them were bottles of alcohol. The alcohol they were drinking wasn't beer or anything like that. Instead, it was bottles of liquor that looked like it had a high alcohol content. Whiskey, XO. When Li Jinnan saw that, he felt that something was amiss. He pulled Yi Yuyu up and said, "Don't drink with strangers." When Yi Yuyu was pulled, she felt that it was inappropriate as well. However, the beauty pulled her over to sit with the group of girls. Li Jinnan frowned and said, "Tell them that we're leaving." Li Jinnan wasn't good at English. He could understand and speak a little, but he wasn't fluent. Yi Yuyu quickly relayed the message and said, "My boss doesn't like to hang out with strangers." "Hey, don't be like that, my China friend. We like China friends. It's fine if you don't drink. Can you tell me what's fun in China?" A burly man with a full beard walked over. He reeked of smoke and alcohol, but his eyes were clear and bright. He looked friendly. The moment he walked over, he hooked his arm around Li Jinnan's shoulder and said, "Wow, you're so tall. You don't look like a China person at all." Li Jinan was 1.9 meters tall. Indeed, he was considered very tall in China. It's all right, GM Li, sit down. If you can't continue the conversation, we'll just leave. Yi Yuyu counted the number of people. There were 5 women and 3 men. The women all had good figures, but they didn't have any obvious muscles. They were all dressed skimpily. It was obvious that they were there to have fun. As for the men, one of them had already put on some weight, and the other 2 looked younger. They were tender and looked like a boiled chicken. Li Jinan would definitely be able to defeat them. More importantly, the American lady was very pretty. It was obvious that she was interested in Li Jinan. Why not help him look for her? What if Li Jinan ended up liking her? As Yi Yuyu thought about it, the image of Li Jinan standing together with the girl appeared in her mind. Although he was from a foreign country, at least, he was better than a divorced woman, right? Yi Yuyu's heart ached a little, but at the same time, she felt an inexplicable sense of relief. He beckoned Li Jinan over and said, GM Li, come over and have a seat. Li Jinan could tell that Yi Yuyu was looking forward to it. He stood there for a moment before walking over and sitting down next to Yi Yuyu. Yi Yuyu said in English, we don't drink, but I can tell you, she talked about traditional culture, the 8 major cuisines, and the various historical classics. Li Jinan listened to her speak. Yi Yuyu's English had a Chinese accent, so Li Jinan could understand her completely. The group gathered around and listened attentively. After talking for a long time, Yi Yuyu began to feel thirsty. She asked, is there any water? Chapter 1473. Yi Yuyu's mouth was very dry. When she heard that there was only alcohol, she didn't dare drink it. She said, forget it, have a seat. I'll go get it. Li Jinan stood up and quickly walked away. Yi Yuyu nodded her head and continued talking to them. A girl beside her brought over a bottle of drink and said, have some to quench your thirst. There's no water or drinks in this bar. You'll have to walk a little further to the rest stop in front. Yi Yuyu glanced at it. It was a glass of green liquid. It looked like it was steaming. It was probably soda. Yi Yuyu took it from her and thanked her. She took a sip and realized that it tasted of alcohol. It was very faint, but it was definitely there. She asked, is this a cocktail? Yes. The alcohol content is very low. It's fine. You won't get drunk. The girls waved their hands as they spoke. They began to tell Yi Yuyu about the customs of Chicago. As Yi Yuyu listened, she felt even thirstier. She almost finished the cocktail. Her alcohol tolerance wasn't bad. 1 bottle of cocktail wasn't enough to get her drunk. Yi Yuyu didn't take it to heart at all. When Li Jinan came in with a bottle of water, he saw the nearly empty bottle in front of her. His brows immediately furrowed together and he asked, what did you drink? A little cocktail. Yi Yuyu noticed that Li Jinan's expression wasn't too good. It's fine. Everyone is just chatting and having fun. They don't have any ill intentions toward us. It's not as chaotic as you think. It wasn't that Li Jinan was afraid of what they would do, but he was exasperated by Yi Yuyu's lack of vigilance. He said, how dare you mess around when I'm not around? If they put something in there, it'll be no laughing matter. With that, he walked in and sat down beside Yi Yuyu. The group of Americans didn't understand what Li Jinan had just said, but they could tell from his expression that he wasn't happy. They looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders innocently. Li Jinan had bought quite a number of drinks, including various flavors of fruit juice and mineral water. He placed them on the table and said, have some water. The group of people had been thinking about how to lighten the mood. When they heard Li Jinan's words, they didn't stand on ceremony. They each took a bottle and said, it's boring to keep talking. Let's play something interesting. Yi Yuyu's interest was piqued. After chatting for a while, she found this group of people very interesting. She asked, what do you want to play? Look, They are a couple from California, and they are sisters from Chicago. Everyone is the same. We don't know each other except for our names. So, Nan, you don't have to be too wary of us. We are all here to have fun, so don't be too nervous. Tina waved her hand and said, Yo-Yo is very cute, but her boyfriend is too strict. Yo-Yo will be unhappy. Those words were, of course, directed at Li Jinnan. Li Jinnan understood. He opened a bottle of mineral water and responded. Yi Yu quickly explained, that's what he is, but he's not my boyfriend. He's what are we playing? Li Jinnan interrupted her and asked, you're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.